My name is Lena Sinclair, I'm 37, and for the past 6 years, I've lived in the apartment building my in-laws' own. Evergreen Heights, nestled in one of Seattle's wealthiest old neighborhoods. They call it a legacy property. I call it a gilded cage. I'm married into the Levasseur family, thinking love would make me one of them. But I've always been the outsider, the charity case, the community worker who didn't belong at the table with lawyers, investors, and heirs. Elise, my sister-in-law, says I never understood how things work in this family. She's right. I thought fairness mattered. Until the morning I came home and found a legal notice taped to my door, signed by my mother-in-law, Margaret, tripling my rent overnight. That was the day I realized this wasn't a family feud. It was a declaration of war. The paper was thick, creamy, textured, the kind you'd expect at a wedding. Gold embossed header, Levasseur Estates, LLC. Below, black serif letters screamed in silence. Notice of rental adjustment, Unit 3B. Effective immediately, $8,650 per month. I stood in the hallway, cold light flickering above, pulse drumming behind my ears. My hands trembled, not from the number, but from the name at the bottom, Margaret A. Levasseur, owner. The door across the hall creaked. Elise appeared in heels, hair perfect, mug in hand like she hadn't just set my life on fire. Didn't think you'd be home this early, she smiled, sipping. I mean, you do work with the underfunded. 8,650. My voice cracked. She tilted her head. It's market rate. Fair. You know how inflation works, right? There was a pause, just long enough to suffocate. Then the smirk. That fucking smirk. You really should have expected this, Lena. You're not family in the legal sense. She walked past me, leaving behind perfume and poison. Back inside, the walls closed in. I paced, called Miles, straight to voicemail. Of course. He was always unreachable when things turned real. Laptop, lease, email, nothing. My records gone. Every file I'd saved about my tenancy vanished. Not moved. Deleted. I logged into the backup server. Admin password failed. Twice. 3 times. Locked out. I had 1 shot left. I dug into the top drawer, pulled out the old flash drive, the one Margaret didn't know existed, plugged it in. Click. Folder opened. 1 file. JPEG. /Levandi_contractorcent.jpg. I clicked. The screen flickered, then came the image. Margaret and Elise, 2 months ago, seated in a boardroom I didn't recognize. A third man blurred. Behind them, a logo. Levanda Projects, LLC. A shell company. The timestamp. 3 days before I was notified. Downstairs, the intercom buzzed. I flinched. Stared. No one was expected. I picked up. Static. Then, just checking if you're home, a voice rasped. Line went dead. I grabbed my coat, bolted, ran 3 blocks to Tara Briscoe's unit in 6C. She opened before I knocked. You saw it too, didn't you? She whispered. She had a copy of the same letter. Same logo. Same number. $8,650. Margaret's flipping the building, she said, shaking. Slow burn gentrification. You're just the first test. Why me? Tara blinked, then lowered her voice. Because you're the only one with legal standing to contest it. Your family on paper. She handed me a folded printout. A ledger. Marked red. Projected quarterly ROI. Post-resident clearance. I stepped back. Post-resident. Think about it, she said. They're not raising rent. They're purging. Back upstairs, I stopped at my door. It was open. I never leave it open. Inside, untouched. Quiet. Except one thing, my work desk. The keyboard. A single photo had been slid under the keys. Black and white. My wedding day. Except Margaret's face had been scratched out. Deep. On the back, written in pencil. This building belongs to the survivors. I dropped the photo. If they think I'll go quietly, I whispered. They've picked the wrong Sinclair. I didn't sleep. Every door creak felt like a message. Every shadow on the window, a silhouette that lingered too long. At 3:17 a.m., I heard it. A soft shuffle outside my door. I held my breath. Slipped from bed. My bare feet hit the cold wood floor. Silence. Then again, a whisper of fabric. Someone moving. Just outside. I grabbed the baseball bat from under the sink. Swung the door open. Nothing. Just the empty hallway, humming with power lines and old secrets. But the welcome mat had shifted. Someone had been here. By morning, the city was gray. Low clouds pressing against the skyline like fists. Seattle always had a way of matching your worst mood. My inbox lit up. First from Margaret's legal team. Notice of lease enforcement. Second from Elise. Please don't make this harder than it has to be. I forwarded both to an old contact, Detective Rowan Hayes. We weren't friends, but I'd helped him once with a neighborhood outreach program. He owed me. Subject line, need eyes on something. No response. At 10:04 a.m., Tara Briscoe called. Her voice was ragged. They were in my apartment. I froze. I left for groceries. Came back. Drawers open. Laptop's gone. Just mine. They didn't touch my roommate's stuff. Police. They said no forced entry. No evidence of break-in. Just missing property. What was on the laptop? Tara hesitated. The original rent roll. The one before the adjustment. And a folder. With lease copies from 2007 to 2015. Before Lavanda. My stomach dropped. They knew exactly what they were looking for. We met at the cafe across from City Hall. Neutral ground. Windows wide. Eyes everywhere. Tara wore a hoodie, sunglasses. She looked like someone in witness protection. This isn't just financial, she whispered. They're targeting you. Because I live rent-free. No. Because you're the only one they can evict without cause. Everyone else, month-to-month leases. You're married to the bloodline. You're embedded. I sipped bitter coffee. There's an old quote, Tara said, staring at the street. You don't kill a witness. You erase their platform. I went back to the basement, server room that afternoon. Used the second set of keys. The ones I made myself after Margaret changed the locks last year without telling me. I shut the metal door. Locked it behind me. Dust. Fluorescent buzz. Low light. A single blinking router light blinked like Morse code. I sat. Logged in. Admin access denied. I took out my backup USB. Only one file loaded /evergreen_heights /2012_ purchase package .pdf. But before I could open it, footsteps. Soft. Deliberate. Someone was in the hallway. I yanked the plug. Killed the monitor. Pocketed the drive. The knob turned. I froze. Reached for the wrench hanging by the boiler. Silence. Then a voice, low, amused. You always did like secrets. It was Miles. He leaned against the frame. No apology. No explanation. You could have called, I said, stepping away from the door. He didn't move. I saw the legal notice, he said. You didn't think to mention your mother planned to bankrupt me? I didn't know she would go that far. Bullshit. I didn't know, he repeated, quieter. I crossed my arms. Tell me something, Miles. When you signed that asset consolidation memo last winter, did you even read it? He hesitated. You signed away part of Evergreen Heights management rights to Lavanda projects. That memo is why I'm now a tenant, not a co-owner. I didn't. You did. I have the file. Your digital signature. February 3rd, 3:21 p.m. Miles exhaled. Sat on the generator crate. They told me it was just a reclassification to protect the building from tax changes. I laughed, cold empty. There's no such thing as neutral paperwork. After he left, I opened the drive. Inside the PDF blueprints, purchase agreements, and an annexed file, audio_transcript_recordings, /meeting_February 14, 2015, txt. I opened it. Lines scrolled fast. Margaret. If she ever finds out what really happened to the previous owner, we bury her just like we did him. The text blurred. My vision tunneled. The previous owner died. Official cause, fall from balcony. But the files said we. Not he. Not they. We. There was a knock. I snapped the laptop shut. No one should know I was here. But the knock came again. 3 soft taps. I opened the door. An envelope slid across the floor. No return address. Just one sentence inside. Stop digging, or you'll be next. Someone's been inside my home, and they knew exactly what to take. The envelope sat on the table for 30 minutes before I opened it. My fingers hovered, hesitating like they already knew what was inside would change everything. 3 words, handwritten in block letters. Stop digging, or... The rest was torn. Deliberate. Threat or invitation. Same thing, really. I stared at the jagged edge of the page and whispered, "Cowards never finish what they start." Then I dialed Rowan Hayes. We met at a public library downtown. 2nd floor, by the genealogy archive. Quiet. Cameras, but no microphones. He looked older. Tired. Still wore the same brown leather jacket from the year the Sandoval case blew up. Back then he had chased corruption in city contracts like a bloodhound. Now he glanced over his shoulder twice before sitting down. I looked into Levanda projects, I said. They're not real. He opened a folder. Thick. They're real enough to register in Delaware. Paper shell, though. No employees. No actual developments. No tax ID match with any building permits in Seattle. So what are they? He leaned in. Money launderers. Asset shufflers. Fall guys. Take your pick. I showed him the transcript. The one where Margaret said bury her, just like we did him. Rowan's jaw clenched. I knew something was off about the Kowalski fall, he muttered. The guy never leaned over that balcony. He was afraid of heights. That's what his sister told me. You investigated? They shut it down. No witnesses. No video. Me ruled it an accident. Quiet settlement. 2 weeks later, Margaret inherits Evergreen Heights. I blinked. You're saying Margaret may have orchestrated a murder for property control? He didn't answer. Didn't have to. Back at Evergreen, the hallway lights flickered like strobe. I walked faster. A faint scraping noise came from behind Unit 5A. Tara's door. I knocked. No answer. I knocked again. Louder. Still nothing. I pulled out my backup key. She gave it to me after the break-in and slid it into the lock. It jammed. Not wrong. Changed. Someone had rekeyed it. I backed away slowly, heart thudding. That's when I noticed the mail slot. Blood. A single dark smear on the brass lip. I stepped back, stumbled into the wall. Called Rowan. I need a wellness check. Now. Cops came in fast. Tara's apartment was wrecked. Like a storm had passed through with intention. Not chaos, targeted. Focused. Drawers turned out. Bed slashed. Floorboards pried up. No Tara. No signs of struggle. No footage on the hallway cameras. They were offline again. Same timestamp as the night someone stalked mine. She's not missing, one of the officers said, indifferent. Probably took off. Without her phone, her meds, her glasses. He shrugged. They didn't see a crime because Tara wasn't rich. And Margaret was. That night, I stared at my own hallway cam footage again. Paused at frame 3:14 a.m. There, a silhouette. just outside Tara's door. Too tall to be her. Too thin to be Miles. Wearing gloves. Frame by frame, they reached down toward something. Then stood. Walked out of frame. I zoomed in. Enhanced. Nothing useful. Just grain and shadows. But I knew what they took. Tara's backup drive. Miles came home late. Smelled like scotch and quiet guilt. Where were you? He dropped his keys. Didn't answer. Miles. I was at Elise's. She wanted to talk. Elise doesn't talk. She delivers orders. He turned. Face tired. You really think I'm part of this? You signed away our rights. Either you're stupid or you're complicit. Silence. Then, quietly, he said, they told me if I didn't sign, they'd tear it all down. All of it. The building. The people. You. I laughed. Sharp. And you believed them? He looked away. Some people will torch a house just to feel warm, I said, even if it's their own. Later, I checked the email again. Rowan had sent a file, a zipped folder, no subject line. Inside, documents from the Kowalski estate, transfer of ownership, initialed by Margaret Levasseur, witnessed by Elise, dated exactly 36 hours after Kowalski's death. Fast. Too fast. Then the second file, labeled, call _ transcript _ 2013. I clicked play. Crackling audio. Faint at first. Elise's voice. You sure it'll look like an accident? Margaret's. He was clumsy, and the rail was old. The insurance won't ask questions. Then silence. A chair scraping. A laugh. They never do. I sat there, trembling. This wasn't about rent. This was engineered displacement. Fabricated incompetence. Cleansing by contract. If they did it once, they'd do it again. If they did it to him, they could do it to me. I was next. If this is about murder, I'm not just fighting for rent anymore. The email from Rowan came with a red flag tag, urgent. I clicked. One sentence. We need to talk. In person. Tonight. Don't trust anyone, not even Miles. I turned from my desk. The living room was still. Dim. I hadn't turned on the lights in hours. I stood. Walked slowly to the window. Pulled the curtain an inch. The black SUV was still there. Same one from this morning. Parked across the street. Engine off. No plates. No movement. But it hadn't left. Neither had they. I met Rowan behind the AMC on Pine. Neon lights flickering over puddles, the scent of popcorn sour in the December air. He wore a knit cap low over his face. Kept his voice low. Tara's missing wasn't reported officially. Her name's not even in the police logs. What? They cleaned it. Wiped her. How is that even possible? He met my eyes. You're not fighting a family anymore, Lena. You're fighting a network. He pulled a USB from his coat, slid it into my palm. Inside, recordings, not transcripts. From Elise's burner. She's careless. He handed me a second item, a folded legal envelope. Inside, a death certificate. Kowalski, Benjamin. Cause, internal bleeding. Secondary, cervical fracture. Manner, accidental fall. But someone had added a sticky note. Me signed off in under 4 hours. Paid in cash. Cross-reference file, Mercy General Payroll. A quote echoed in my head. Something Tara once said at a tenant board meeting. When you can't win the game, flip the table. I was ready to flip the whole damn building. I stormed back home. The moment I stepped in, I felt it. Quiet. Too quiet. Miles sat on the couch. TV on, but volume muted. His face was blank. Remote frozen in his hand. Where were you tonight? I asked. Work. Why? AMC says you clocked out at 4:10. It's now 8:47. He didn't blink. You tracking me now? No, I said. They are. I tossed the envelope at him. Mercy General Payroll. You know who works there? Elise's ex-husband. The same guy who signed off as me on Kowalski's case. The same one whose signature is on your asset memo. He looked down, stayed silent. I pushed further. You didn't just sign away our rights, Miles. You signed off on a cover-up. That makes you a co-conspirator. He stood slowly, voice low. I didn't know what they were hiding. But you knew they were hiding something. His jaw tightened. Margaret said if I helped, she'd keep you safe. She promised. I stepped back. She doesn't protect people. She eliminates them. I left before I could scream. Outside, the wind howled like warning. I crossed the street, fast, into the back alley behind the bodega, pulled out my phone, opened the voice memos, hit play. Elise, the bank won't trace it. Margaret rerouted through Carson Trust. Unknown male. And the Sinclair woman? Elise, she's just noise. Once the notice goes through, she'll fold. They always do. Margaret, if she doesn't, we move forward. Click. Silence. Then, Margaret again. Just like we did with Tara. I couldn't breathe. This wasn't pressure. This was premeditation. They were laundering, framing, erasing. I stumbled out of the alley, nearly collided with a man walking a pit bull. He glared at me. I nodded, apologized. My eyes darted. The black SUV? Gone. But a new car had taken its place. Windows tinted, engine running. I backed into the shadows, dialed Rowan. No answer. I texted, they know. I have proof. I need to get this to someone safe. Send. Read. Then nothing. I turned the corner, heading for the community center. Only a few lights were still on. My office was in the back, third floor. High window. One way in, one way out. I pushed the door open, locked it behind me, bolted it, slid the USB into the old laptop I kept off-grid. Files loaded. Folder / evergreen _ covert / inside financial statements, wire transfers, photos, and one final document. Will addendum, Le Vasseur Family Trust unfiled. It was signed, Margaret, Elise, Miles, dated before Kowalski's death. Clause 4B. Upon removal or incapacitation of primary tenants, full control transfers to Lavanda Projects. Suddenly, the fire alarm blared. Smoke? No. Just noise. A trigger. A distraction. A message. I yanked the drive, shoved it in my coat, ran. Down the fire escape. Into the alley. Toward the parking lot. Feet pounding. Breath short. A door slammed behind me. Footsteps. Fast. Getting closer. I turned the corner and ran straight into someone. Not a stranger. Detective Rowan. His face pale. He grabbed my shoulders. They found the body. What body? He stared. Tara's. I didn't cry when Rowan told me Tara was dead. Shock does that. It seals everything tight. Turns you into a container instead of a person. How? I asked. Rowan's jaw flexed. Officially, overdose. Found in her bathtub. No signs of forced entry. Officially, I repeated. He nodded once. Unofficially, her tox screen doesn't match anything she was prescribed. And the me who signed off. He didn't need to finish. Elise's ex, I said. Rowan looked at me like I was already ahead of him. Yeah. We drove in silence. City lights smeared across the windshield like wet paint. Every red light felt like a target. Every car behind us stayed too close. You need to disappear for a bit, Rowan said. Safe house. Off the grid. No, I said. If I disappear, they win. You don't understand the level you're dealing with. I do, I said quietly. They kill the quiet ones first. He exhaled. Hard. There's an internal task force sniffing around Lavanda. AMC flagged suspicious transfers this morning. Nolan's office just opened a preliminary review. Then it's already moving, I said. That's why they killed Tara. To slow it down. To scare me off. I thought of something my father used to say when I was a kid, back when truth still mattered. Power doesn't shout. It waits until you're alone. I went back to Evergreen Heights. Bad decision. I knew at the moment I stepped inside. The lobby smelled wrong. Clean. Like disinfectant. Too clean. The front desk was gone. Ripped out. Wires exposed. Renovation notices plastered on the wall. Les Vasseur Estates. Redevelopment in progress. I hadn't been notified. My phone buzzed. Miles, we need to talk. Please. I ignored it. The elevator didn't work. Stairs only. 3rd floor. Each step echoed. By the time I reached my door, my hands were shaking. The lock was intact, but the door was ajar. Inside, everything was upside down. Drawers emptied. Closet gutted. Mattress slashed. My old notebooks gone. The off-grid laptop gone. They'd been thorough. Professional. The kind of people who don't rush. I stood there, chest tight, and laughed once. Sharp and ugly. They always forget one thing, I muttered. I reached into the wall vent. Pulled out the backup flash drive. The one I never told anyone about. Not even Tara. Still there. Still warm. Someone had been close. I didn't hear Elise enter. Her heels clicked once. Then stopped. You should have taken the offer, she said calmly. I turned. She leaned against the doorway like she owned the air. Perfect suit. Perfect hair. No trace of guilt. You killed her, I said. She tilted her head. Tara? She made bad choices. She trusted you. Elise smiled thinly. Trust is for people who can afford it. I clenched the drive in my fist. You think you're untouchable. I know I am. She stepped closer. Slow. Controlled. Margaret raised rent to test you. To see how loud you'd scream. You screamed beautifully. You're bleeding this building dry, I said. There are federal statutes, tenant protections, wrongful death, conspiracy. She laughed. Soft. You still think laws protect people. Laws protect structures. We own the structure. Not for long. Her eyes flicked to my hand. Give me what you have. No. She sighed. You're making this harder than it needs to be. Behind her, the hallway light flickered. Then Miles. Standing there. Pale. Broken. Elise, he said. Stop. She didn't look at him. This ends tonight, she said to me. Either you hand it over, or you join Tara. Miles stepped forward. You promised no more. She turned on him, then. I promised efficiency. Everything happened at once. Sirens. Distant, but closing. Rowan. Calling my name from the stairwell. Elise's smile faltered. I held up the flash drive. You're already too late. Her eyes went dark. What did you do? I filed mandatory reports, I said. Multiple agencies. Nolan. AMC. DOJ. With timestamps. With redundancies. That's impossible, she snapped. I learned something, I said. If you're going to expose monsters, you don't whisper. You broadcast. Rowan burst in, weapon drawn. Elise Levasseur, he said. You're under arrest for obstruction, conspiracy, and material witness tampering. She laughed. Loud. Hysterical. You think this sticks, she shouted. My mother owns half this city. Rowan didn't flinch. Not anymore. Behind him, more officers poured in. Miles collapsed into a chair, face in his hands. As Elise was cuffed, she leaned close to me. You don't understand what you've done. I met her eyes. I understand exactly. They took her away screaming. Hours later, I stood alone in my ruined apartment. The silence was deafening. Rowan called from the hallway. Margaret's lawyers are scrambling, but we're freezing assets. Full audit. Good, said. He hesitated. There's something else. My chest tightened. What? They reopened the Kowalski case. I closed my eyes. Finally, as Rowan left, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. One message. You think Elise was the head of this? I stared at the screen. Then another message appeared. She was just the hands. My breath caught. Because deep down I already knew. This war wasn't over. It was just changing faces. 6 weeks. That's how long it took for the headlines to die down. For Elise's face to vanish from news tickers. For Margaret's assets to be frozen. For AMC and the DOJ to release their joint report. A firestorm of wire fraud, elder abuse, falsified documents, and systemic coercion masked as family real estate management. But they never mentioned Tara. Not once. I sat on the stoop of a new building. Smaller, older, rent-controlled. No concierge. No lobby piano. Just peace. Across the street, kids biked past without helmets, shouting over the warm dusk. I clutched the ceramic mug in my hand tighter. Inside, hot chamomile rippled. You look better, Rowan said, dropping onto the step beside me. I feel different. That's something. He passed me an envelope. What is this? DOJ's settlement offer, he said. Back pay for illegal rent hikes. Restitution. It's not much, but... I cut him off. I'm not taking it. He blinked. Why? Because it doesn't fix what they broke. We sat in silence. A couple walked by holding hands, whispering. Somewhere nearby, a screen door creaked. A dog barked twice and went quiet. I didn't know who I was before all this, I said finally. I just played along. Let them steamroll me. You survived. Surviving and living aren't the same. I watched the sunset catch on the metal railing. Red, then gold, then shadow. You know the thing about power? I asked. Rowan glanced over. It's only invisible when you're scared to name it. Inside, the apartment was still mostly empty. Boxes stacked along the wall. No paintings. No rug. Just clean lines and sunlight. I opened the window. The breeze smelled like grilled onions and car exhaust. My phone buzzed. It was Miles. I'm sorry. For all of it. I stared at the screen. Then typed one word. Live. Then I blocked the number. A knock at the door. When I opened it, a short woman stood there holding a pie. You must be the new tenant, she said. I'm Dolores from 3B. If you ever need anything, tools, sugar, gossip, I'm around. I almost laughed. Thank you. As she turned to leave, she added, You remind me of my sister. Quiet eyes, but a storm in your chest. That one hit deep. After she left, I put the pie on the counter, sat down at the table, took out the flash drive, plugged it into my laptop. One folder. Inside, legal documents, spreadsheets, audio files, recordings Tara made. Her voice, calm and matter-of-fact. This is for Lily, she said in one, because sometimes the only way out is through the fire. That night I started writing. Not a report, not a lawsuit, a book, a memoir of silence broken, of truths that bite, of families that chew you up before they call it love. I called it Inheritance Isn't Always Blood. Weeks later, a letter arrived. No return address. Inside, a photograph of Elise, taken from inside a courtroom. In the back, blurred but unmistakable, Margaret, smiling. Behind bars. No, in the gallery. Free. At the bottom of the photo, a single handwritten note. Round 2 is always bloodier. I burn the letter. Some battles you win. Some you survive. And some you prepare for. But me? I choose to rebuild louder. Because what they don't tell you is, sometimes the most dangerous weapon isn't proof. It's memory. And mine is now permanent.